Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Just as a preamble, and thank you very much, Rawan, for that wonderful dhikr and the comments. We are people who are looking and searching. But the fact is that we are absent to our own selves. So whatever we look for, even if it is God, Allah, we will not find him. Because how can one lost to his own self find anything else? And by priority, the futility of this earthly life of ours, which the Quran deems as the life of the world, a very illusory life in the way we understand, and a very real life in terms of what potentially we can become through it and what hinges upon it of the life to come. And that's why you find often in the hadith literature describes the endeavors of human beings as being in vain and futile in the worldly sense, gaining of fame, gaining of power, gaining of wealth, health. It's seen as futile endeavors because they are in and of themselves. How can one lost to his own true self find any satisfaction through acquisition of what is termed as mirage? As the Quran explains, that when they turn to retrieve whatever they feel they have amassed, a gust of wind comes and blows it all away like scattered dust. In a frenzy, they try and grab hold to whatever they can. And in vain is their effort at that point. Such depictions highlight for us that we are actually not here and we do need to be present to ourselves. For the only thing we can truly gain is ourselves, and after that, whatever is acquired adds to the gaining of the self. In this sense, the Quran highlights the issue of the heart or the qalb. The heart is a receptor of the otherworldly truth. By otherworldly, obviously what I mean is the deeper truth that resides with this existence of ours that we call us. Where this existence that we call us is a false one, an arbitrary one, an illusory one. And the truth that resides with it is the real one. And the heart is that point that can connect us with that truth, and hence the emphasis upon the heart. In the verses where Ibrahim makes his prayers, he states, "Illa man atallaha biqalbin salim," that none shall be saved on that day save the one who comes with an untarnished heart. Similarly, the Quran describes other states of the heart. I just want to build momentarily on this. The restful state of the heart, the itminan. See, Ibrahim tries to figure out who he is, what God is, what his purpose is, and if he can at all believe whatever he is receiving. So he says to Allah that how shall you resurrect the dead? And the response comes, will you not have faith? He said, yes, I have faith. I have faith. But beyond my faith, there is that deeper sense of unfulfilled recognition that I need to activate, where I can commit myself wholly at the core of myself, and I know I've committed. In other words, what he says, oh Allah, in order for my heart to be content. So Ibrahim recognizes that the finest of deductions that he makes at the level of his thinking mind, he is still not arriving at that substantive level of groundedness with what he is understanding at the level of his mind. Therefore, he invokes the recognition that comes at the level of the heart. And that's why we say that heart is a place of not evaluating information or working out the unknown. It is the level of recognition, the level of deep-seated understanding, and the most befitting word is realization, that we deeply realize, which goes beyond the workings of the mind. That is why the masters of Irfan, and of course, how wonderfully articulated by the late Shahid Mutahari, that the thinking part of our person and the feeling part of our being are two distinct ways of understanding. What is felt by the heart cannot be understood by the mind. The mind understands in a different language. So what is felt by the heart has to be translated for the mind to understand in terms of information. So the mind works with notions, but the heart feels, and it's a receptor. Similarly, the Quran talks about the hearts that have been sealed. Once they are sealed, whatever they hear, they see, they think is inaccurate. Then the Quran talks about the hearts that are sick. They are not sealed, but they are unwell. They've got a lot of turbulence within. They've got a lot of disturbance in there. Of course, in the instance of the verses of Baqarah, the Quran talks about the hearts of those who are pretending to believe in God and inwardly share animosity to the Prophet. And they're filled with jealousy. So God terms those hearts as sick heart. But those hearts, God says, they have a painful chastisement. Of course, the painful chastisement of hereafter is something to come. What the Quran is gesturing at is that that state that they encounter in themselves is a painful state. They can't be themselves, and they can't let go either and embrace. They are caught up in that state. The Quran also talks about the hearts that are hardened. In the case of the Israelites, those who slaughtered the cow, he said, then their hearts hardened, and they were like rocks. Nay, harder still, because there are rocks that fall to the ground and break. And there are those through which water finds way and bursts forth. And there are those that fall and tremble in the awe of God. But the heart of the individual, when it hardens, nothing will work. And Allah says in another surah, sorrow be the lot of the hardened of hearts from the remembrance of Allah. Now, with this prelude, what I wish to say here is that I know our existence is troublesome. We have worries, we have fears, we have anxieties, and life is not easy. The Quran spells it out for us. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. Human being is created in difficulties. Difficulties are a concomitant of this life. We have bargained for it. However, when the difficulties prevail upon us and we lose our sense of direction, that is when we despair from within. That is when the heart becomes overly involved in difficulties, and that receptivity of the heart is lost. When we interact and react to that difficulty through a forgetful state of what we are, that's when the heart becomes sealed, possibly, becomes unwell, possibly, becomes hardened, possibly. But if the heart can be seen as that point where we can find ourselves, the true self, and we can find God, then that receptivity of the heart can be increased. The heart can be cleansed. As the Quran says, Qalbul Munib, a heart that turns tenderly to God or melts away in Allah. Now, how do we go about doing that? Becoming vigilant about the heart and seeing how the heart can be emptied. So now the Urafa talk about the merits of seclusion and silence. The less we talk, the more the mind is freed from bombardment of ideas, thoughts, and chatter that constantly distract it so that it can think accurately. And the words that are spoken are precise words and deep words, unlike the lecture I'm giving right now. If I see a smile, I know you're listening. Similarly, silencing the heart increases the receptivity of the heart to its true nature and to the Supreme One, God. How do we do that? Well, first, obviously, we talk less. That is for the mind. But when it comes to the heart, to become extremely vigilant of the feelings that transpire upon the heart. You see, we get all types of feelings, emotions that cross the heart. And we are so accustomed to this as a way of life, we do not even realize that these feelings, these emotions, the suggestions that enter within the heart, they cause the mind to immediately react to it and think upon them. So the whole of our existence and being is just responding to those external impetuses, suggestions that are coming in there. And then we are thinking about it. That shapes our attitudes, our speech, the way we interact. And that shapes our life and sets a trajectory that we will follow through for the rest of our lives. Constant bombardment of emotions, constant interactions at the level of the mind, constant reactions. And that shows in our way in which we deal with people. The way to therefore quieten the heart and to calm it down, as Rawan just taught us, is through the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But together with the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through vigilance, introspection, becoming acutely aware. You see, people will say, well, I can't cry, it's difficult. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to cry. It might have been dampened slightly. What we need to do is we need to be vigilant about everything that is entering within the heart. So if we get an emotion, if we get a suggestion, the waswas that the Quran talks about, we need to become mindful that, I'm experiencing this. And this I should not be experiencing. So as opposed to letting it then develop and working towards the level of the mind and carving our personality and setting our personality, if we can catch it there, then we can slowly remove it from our souls. Now, it's not something that you can do overnight. It requires a lot of practice and perseverance, but we can start. So, for example, we have memories within the heart of past events and the hurts that have been caused to us. Now the heart retains that, so it will suggest it again and again and again, and then we interact with it, and then we go back into the same inner turbulence and turmoil. When the heart suggests that moment of hurt, to actually be vigilant and say, right, the heart needs to forget this, to invoke Allah deeply from the heart and say, Allah, help me remove this. To resort to the dhikr of Allah, just constantly say Allah, Allah, Allah loudly, so that the mind is not. We counter this. The heart's ability to retain that memory and to resuggest it will lessen. Similarly, we find that suggestions are made within the heart because we are intertwined with another realm, as we are in this physical realm, or our physicality is intertwined with a finer world that is suggesting things to us and placing data and things into our hearts without we knowing, because the receptor has gone a bit faulty. So when these suggestions come, to just be mindful and to dispel it. And if we can acquire that skill of catching it at the right time, trying to nullify it, dispel it, then the heart becomes freer and freer and freer. What happens with that is that even after that, even when we engage in speech with other people, the heart will say, stop now. You are venturing in areas that you are not allowed to at this point. You're not supposed to talk about this. Or when we are talking, it's very easy to talk about other people in a way that might not be befitting. Now, we don't realize this in normal conversations as we converse. It's very inadvertently done and very sort of um, spontaneously done. It's a part of our way of talking. But when the heart becomes calmer and the receptivity of the heart to the truth is increased, the heart will suggest to the mind, do not say this. Or the heart will suggest to the mind what to say. And you see those people with a presence. That presence is only because they are there at the level of the heart. They are living, they are present, and their presence is felt by the rest of us who are within their company in a congregation, let us say, or one-on-one. You'll find people that have that deep sense of presence that cannot go unnoticed, that yes, this person is here. So as we become vigilant and we quieten the heart down, not of the chatter, but of the feelings and spontaneous suggestions, the heart becomes more and more cleansed, finds ease, and as it finds ease, that is when it begins to hear the voice of God. Now, the voice of God is not a voice, an audible voice, although maybe sometimes the chanting that takes place deep inside is audible without us being able to listen to it, yet it is sharper than any sound that we hear. But that's not what I mean. Inner understanding and recognition. We will know when our Lord is with us. He will make his presence felt. He will let it be known to us that I am here. Pay heed to me, or that I am with you. And heart softens, and it breaks at the plight of others. It is able to forgive. It is able to let go. It is able to helplessly care for others. The most important thing spiritual literature focuses on is the heart of the children of Adam. Now, I'll leave us with that beautiful statement that has been attributed to our spiritual lords, that Allah says that I am so overwhelmingly grand that the unending earths and heavens cannot contain me. Yet I may enter into the heart of my creature and reside there. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you, Shaykh, for that beautiful talk. If there are any questions, you can use the raise hands function, or you can message me privately. Or Rawan. Yeah, go ahead, Rawan.
Thank you so much, Shaykh, for that enlightening talk. So my question is, can you go, I know it's about, purifying the heart, making it receptive, but is there a way to go through the mind, for example, and adopt perhaps certain skills for you to resort to in order to sort of not react out of the feelings that you have and heal that way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is what we do as a standard practice. So you see, we say, okay, when you're praying Salah, make sure you perform ablutions with presence of mind. You find a room that does not distract.
Mhm.
Perfume yourself, wear clean garments, choose a place that is not too bright, not too dark. So these are through the mind, preparatory stages, so that the mind can prepare the heart to become receptive. Obviously, yeah.
Mhm.
Obviously.
Yeah, because I think from my experience, resorting to a lot of, let's say, self-help books to just heal, look at the emotions, look at the pain, it was almost taking me backwards. I was actually regressing instead of, going forward. So I agree with what you said in that it can be done both ways,
Yeah.
for the mind and the
I
heart.
suppose the balance is, it's like somebody can't give up sugar. So you say, well, resort to sweeteners instead for a while. Or a crude example, somebody can't kick the habit of smoking. So we say, well, try vaping,
Mhm.
so slowly get us there.
Gradual, yeah. So my second question is, how did, the Holy Prophet, like I just imagine the first people he sort of conveyed the message to. Was it that their hearts were receptive at that time for the message to be right away sort of received? Or did he have to also gradually work on them as well?
So if when you study the history of the Blessed Prophet, the hearts that were receptive were a very few hearts.
Mm,
The rest of them obviously rejected him, and it was a struggle.
yeah.
The Prophet, till the conquest of Makkah, I believe, struggled, and after that, the couple of years were okay.
Mhm,
Till then, he was struggling very hard, and then the people who were coming into his camp were suspicious of him. If you read the Quran, you will see that they were incentivized by gains of the spoils of war. They were incentivized by paradise. They were brought in line through the threats of hell.
mm,
A lot of people who came in because it was a new status quo developing. It's a very colorful story of the Prophet. He did not convert the hearts into spiritual hearts en masse. But
mhm,
yes, but yes, there were hearts that were endowed with God in the very first part of his message, where the verses and the surahs that came chronologically were talking about Allah, about what is to come, about purifying the soul, about purifying the heart. After that stage, the people who came through the heart and through the working of the mind. I mean, if you see the later surahs, An'am, it talks about the ethics and the morality of communal existence. The things that ought to be done by any human beings. Do not kill your children, do not murder people, do not steal, do not do that. It was at the level of the mind, but at the level of the heart were the first one. So the second batch came in that way. The
mm,
third batch of people came because obviously it was on balance, it's the better people to be with. So it was a very human affair and a human story that the Prophet went through.
mm,
Overall, what he did was he tweaked the situation,
mm,
leaving behind moral incentives, leaving behind the promise of paradise, warning them of hell, and together with that embedded that deep spirituality in his message and the Quran, so that eventually this humanity, as it progresses, it will begin to see beyond losses and gains. It will see righteousness of human values. It will recognize its own nobility and finally come to a pedestal when it will say, I am still not satisfied and I need to understand and recognize who I am. And there shall take birth of that deep existence and that spiritual alignment and being with God. And I feel that it's taken 1,400 years, but humanity maybe now is on the cusp of it,
mm,
awakening spiritually. The whole fact that we're talking about mindfulness, self help books, seeing value in our humanity, seeing the need to get in touch with what we really are in every language, in every tradition, whether they be of faith persuasion or non-faith persuasion, whatever they belong to, humanity at large right now wants to awaken spiritually at that deep level. So the Prophet, coming back, and I'm sorry I took such a long time, the Prophet's message spiritually from the heart was effective to a limited group of people, as is obvious from the reading of the history of the Prophet.